We return, in this our last Cultivating Faith devotional, to the topic of land. Farmers cultivate their land in hopes of planting seeds to produce a harvest. Throughout this series, we have offered thoughts and questions to support you in cultivating your faith so that you and your family can also enjoy the fruits of that labor. According to the Message translation in Hebrews 11, verse 1, faith is the firm foundation under everything that makes life worth living. Interestingly, this could be said also of land. It's the firm foundation that makes life possible here on earth. In our first devotional, we talked about the gift of land, a gift that all cultures and people groups value for a variety of reasons. Mostly because land is an essential resource for the growing of food, whether that be grains, fruits and vegetables, or the raising of animals. Even hydroponic gardeners need land to build structures upon. Biblically speaking, land emerged when God set limits to the waters which covered the earth. This land, while providing us with so much, also has its limits of what it can give, and it can hardly think of any other thing that is more worthy of our care and attention. In the Bible, God is careful to remind us that at times, just like human beings, land needs to rest. In the Old Testament, God's people are specifically told to rest their land and not cultivate it every 7th year. Yet choosing to rest land, perhaps choosing to rest from anything, is at times hard and can seem counterproductive. I suggest that rest itself is an act of faith, for in resting we cease to do work and inherently entrust our well-being to another. This is expressed in that well-known prayer, "Now I lay me down to sleep." Interestingly, I found out that an original version of the prayer from the 1700s may have gone like this: "When I lay me down to sleep, I recommend myself to his care. When I wake, I give myself up to his direction." Oh, the joy and challenges of rest. To take us farther into this topic, we've asked Julie Dirksen, Supporter Relations Manager at Canadian Food Grains Bank, to provide her thoughts on resting land. Julie not only works for the Food Grains Bank, but her family owns and operates an organic vegetable farm in southern Manitoba. Good to have you here with us today, Julie.
I am a farmer's daughter, and now a farmer in my own right. I left my own farm at 18 and then lived in many places: Winnipeg, rural Indiana, Hong Kong, and back to Winnipeg. But my sense of who I am and the place I am from is my family farm in Wymark, Saskatchewan. The home quarter where I grew up, I know well. I know the hard soil, the portulaca that crawls through the vegetable garden and the sides of the driveway. My dad, and now my brother, know the components of every quarter section of land they farm. The places where moisture pools, the fields that are more prone to rocks, they are familiar with it all. 6 years ago, my husband and I purchased 15 acres in southern Manitoba, a town called Newbergtal. We have 2 acres of vegetables that we grow, as well as 12 acres of alfalfa for now. That land had been corn, but we wanted to let it go with alfalfa for 3 years to give us the option of certifying organic. And now we're getting to know new land that is much heavier, darker, and moister. Different weeds and different moisture patterns. And watching that land, we start to learn from it when we need to mulch, when we need more manure, and when we need to change the rotation of vegetables so the beans are fixing nitrogen in a different spot of the garden. We learn which sections to let clover grow so that we can give that area a rest and some time to recover before we again ask it to work with us in producing food for many families. Over the years, the way we talk about our land is like it is a partner in our work and almost like a member of our family, and that the land's needs are important. This is something echoed by farmers in all parts of the world. Asnakach Sima, a farmer participating in a Canadian Food Grains Bank program in southern Ethiopia, has talked about the impact to her land and livelihood of resting the impacts of one crop to make space for the regenerative elements of something else, something she learned from our Conservation Ag program. Exodus 23, verse 11 from the NRSV reads as follows: "But the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, so that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the wild animals may eat. You shall do the same with your vineyard and with your olive orchard." Ellen Davis, a Hebrew Bible scholar, tells us that a life oriented around the Sabbath should lead us to give thanks and praise for the gifts of photosynthesis, soil regeneration, clean water, and the daily supplies of sun and wind. The Sabbath tradition reminds us that we are interdependent with all that God has made and calls us to live humbly so that all may flourish. My hope is that I live interdependently with the land that I farm, that I watch and care for it, and to be able to understand when it needs something different. New plants with different nutrients, more moisture, or perhaps mulch. If I'm doing that, I'm honoring the principle of Sabbath and rest.
So much, Julie. As I listen to these words, I am reminded of the beautiful relationship many farmers throughout our world have with the land God has gifted them. It is a key goal of the Food Grains Bank to support small-scale farmers as they seek to grow more and better food through working and resting their own land. And yet Julie's words also invite me to think about how well I know my own personal landscapes. Am I aware of the different realities in my life that allow or don't allow for rest, growth, and regeneration for myself and for others? Do I take the time to learn from my own life? From the verses Julie shared in Exodus, I also hear a call to at times to rest our land, and I would add to rest our own bodies, so that all may flourish and that all can take the time to give thanks. Finally, I really appreciate Julie's creative thoughts on living out a Sabbath principle by knowing which areas need rest or need something different so that restoration can occur. I think that principle gives much wisdom to farmers as they tend their land and all of us who seek to care for ourselves and our neighbors. With those words, we come to some final questions, suggestions, and a blessing to end this Cultivating Faith series. First, I ask 2 questions. In thinking about your own personal landscapes, is there an area that you know needs more rest so that it can be cared for and remain productive? Is there something different you yourself need so that you can remain thankful and be a blessing to others? I also suggest that you commit to a specific action of rest that might seem counterproductive this week in hopes of regeneration occurring in some area of your life. I do hope this devotional today, along with the other 7 in this series, has been a blessing. May your life and those of your neighbors flourish as you seek to cultivate faith.